Our next speaker once when his wife was 3 months pregnant, he informed her that they were moving to another continent, and he survived miraculously. So definitely get to ask him all about that in the speakers lounge later. He's been part of the Amsterdam tech scene for the longest time. Built up companies here. He's also built up companies in New York, and he's back in Amsterdam, and he can tell us all about what the two ecosystems are like. Ladies and gentlemen, please give him a warm welcome, STEVENVAN WEL.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for sticking around and not all following Ruben to the speakers lounge. Really excites me. Amsterdam or New York? Today I'd like to tell you a little bit about my experience building companies or one company in New York, what I've learned, what I think we can do better in Amsterdam, and tell you a little bit about my journey in New York, which hopefully inspires people to do the same thing either here or in New York. A while back, someone asked me why I'm an entrepreneur and why I do the things that I do. And for me, it boils down to one thing. I'm someone that is easily annoyed by things. I'm easily annoyed by complexity. I'm easily annoyed by companies that make products that are so frustrating that they become impossible to use. So that annoyance, for me, is something that triggers me to build companies and to build products that people love and sometimes hate. So one of the things that I really got annoyed by is real estate. 10, 15 years ago, I wanted to move out of my parents' place and wanted to go and build and find my new house. Annoyed by talking to realtors, annoyed by looking at brochures, I thought, how hard can it be to build your own house? It turned out that it wasn't that hard in theory. You find a piece of land, you find someone to design it, and then you find someone to build it, and in between, you find someone to finance it. If you do that 2, 3, 4 houses, it becomes cheaper. So when I started with my first venture, a real estate development company, I collected 15 different individuals that also wanted to live on their own, and we started to build apartment complexes in a city nearby Amsterdam, Almere. And we did that for the course of 5 years. So I built my first building with 0 experience as a real estate developer. We pulled it off. We did that twice. After that first building, the company is still alive. We now have about 8 buildings spread out in Utrecht, Amsterdam, Almere, and some cities that are up and coming. And it taught me that I could do whatever I want to do as long as I find the right people that will advise me, help me build a team. The second company was finally a real startup, Marvia. Marvia was founded in 2007 here in Amsterdam, where the startup scene was still super tiny. I remember hanging out at the coffee company together with Boris from the Next Web and Patrick and some other people, Jorg, that I'm seeing here today. And the startup scene was literally 10 people sitting every Thursday at the same coffee shop, sipping espressos, and that was the startup scene. Eventually, it got me to found Marvia, a company that automated the print process for companies like Shell, Heineken, later on De Telegraaf, TMG, and it was fun and nice, but it stayed pretty local. We only had Dutch clients, and I wanted to do more. So traveling to New York for fun, I once again got annoyed by connectivity. I got annoyed by the lack of connectivity, and I thought, how hard can it be to get online? So I founded Karma. I want to tell you a little bit about how that went. How do you go from the canals to Broadway? This is Arnoud and Jons and myself. Fun fact is that 2 days later, they used this boat to break into the office next to you on the building, and they completely tear down the place, and everything got stolen, but we still have this great picture. We went from the canals to Broadway because I was annoyed by something. And we had one simple mission. We wanted to make internet access on every device better than ever before. Not just here, not just in New York, everywhere in the US, and really globally. It's a bold mission, something that sounds ridiculous, something that is ridiculous, and something that could only be done in the US at that point. Thinking bigger and bigger every single day sort of gets you to believe that this is actually something that you can pull off, again, with zero experience in the telco industry. When people ask us, should I choose between Amsterdam or New York, people always think that we deliberately made the choice to start our company in New York. We didn't. We were traveling to New York, went into a coffee shop, proper coffee shop, US style, not Amsterdam style, and somehow the founder of Techstars overheard our pitch. We were having lunch with someone from an investment firm, and we walked out. We had a pretty okay meeting. No investment was coming out of that, but we did get an email from David Tisch. David Tisch, back then the founder and managing director of Techstars New York, and he was pretty straightforward. He told us, I spoke to Christina. She told me that you are 3 tall, crazy Dutch guys, and she loves your idea, and I love it as well. I'm going to invest. And we said, okay, sorry, who are you? And he said, well, I'm David. I run a program called Techstars, and you guys should come over to New York and move the company. My wife, sitting over there, then 3 months pregnant, said, well, you know what, let's just do it. So after consulting with a few friends, family, and close advisors, we ended up in New York. If this meeting would have happened in San Francisco, if this meeting would have happened anywhere else, we probably would have moved to that city. So the location where you end up building your company often is just a pure coincidence. We ended up in New York. We ended up building a MiFi hotspot, probably one of the boring products in the world. We managed to put all our technology into this tiny little box, and we started to build out a product. We started to build out a product that people love to use, and we did that by eliminating all the complexity. We did that by making sure that I wasn't annoyed, our customers weren't annoyed, and the one thing that we were famous for is the ability to share connectivity with friends, family, and strangers. But one thing that we did, and not a lot of people noticed, is that we never punished people for not using our product. If you look at most telco plans, if you don't use the product, you still need to pay your monthly bill. At Karma, you were the owner of your data. It was yours forever. You could use it today, tomorrow, or in 6 months from now. You never had to pay for anything if you weren't using the product, and that made people adore our company. We went from selling a few hundred devices in the first few months to a few thousand devices 12 months later, and then I got really, really excited. If you're in New York, if you're in the US, you talk to other investors, to other entrepreneurs on a daily basis. Your day starts at 8 a.m., drinking coffee, and making sure that you know what your next introduction is going to be. You start to raise money. We went from raising 1 million to 2 million to 4 million to 6 million, and your ideas are getting bigger and bigger and bolder. So we knew that we weren't punishing people when they weren't using our service, but we were punishing people when they were using our service. They actually had to pay for it. Right? And every time they used their data, they had to pay us again. And it didn't feel right. So what we wanted to do is launch an unlimited service, because what's better than connectivity everywhere? It's unlimited connectivity everywhere. So we launched a product called NeverStop. NeverStop was great at first. In the first 20 days, 30 days, we sold about 20,000 devices, up from about 2,000 devices, what we normally did in the same 30 days. So it's safe to say that we were on fire. Every investor that we talked to was excited about this. Our existing investors were excited about this. We got term sheets for our next big raise. And I think that I never felt better. We knew that we can scale this up to a few 100,000 devices, And those 250,000 customers soon will be a few million customers, and we would have made it. But I forgot one thing. I forgot to build in a data cap, that at some point it actually stops. So 30 days later, we had to pull the product. And our, by then, 100,000 customers got incredibly pissed off. So we went from 5 stars to, well, technically 0 stars, but you have to give 1. So to 1 star on Amazon, Facebook hate groups, hate email, death threats. It wasn't fun at all. That took about 3 or 4 months of dealing with my board of directors, trying to sort of fend off customers. We were refunding about 10,000 people who were so angry that we were changing the basics of that product and that they simply wanted their money back. And then in April, I met Donald. Well, not Donald, but at least I got fired. My board of directors thought it was enough. We've lost too much money, we weren't capable of raising more cash, and there was only one way out for them, and that was the good old US box. So on a Tuesday morning, 10 a.m., I walk into my office, and at 10:05, I walked out of the office. In reality, it looked more like this. On the left or right, depending on where you're staying, Stefan, my co-founder, he's secretly crying behind these glasses. Robert, our COO, wasn't happy, mostly because he knew that he would get fired next. I was quite okay. I was probably in shock, but at least I was laughing. A little bit later, we get the entire team together, and we start to drink to celebrate the beautiful things that we've built. And the next thing that happened is that the new management took over. And this was basically the gift that we used for the next 4 weeks when the new management installed new products that went straight into the beliefs that we had as a company. 30 people quit their job, and Karma is nothing more than a nice gimmick nowadays. So that's my story at Karma. And during my time at Karma, we've learned a few things. We learned how to relocate. This is like our actual truck moving from Brooklyn back to Amsterdam. Let me go one back. This is my daughter, Pien, in her last day in New York. She had no clue. She thought we were going on a holiday. Joke's on you. And this is me back in Amsterdam, looking quite surprised, not because of everything what just happened, mostly because my family-in-law and my parents didn't know that I was standing there for 5 minutes because I used a different exit. That's our Karma story. So what have we learned? What have we learned from running businesses in Amsterdam, raising capital in Amsterdam, and doing the same thing in New York? Be very stubborn. If you ask any of my ex-co-founders, this is my #1 quality. My wife and friends can vouch for this. I'm super stubborn. If you try to do something in Amsterdam, people will tell you no 10 times. If you try to do the same thing in New York, people will tell it to you 150 or 200 times. So you got to be super stubborn, and you got to believe in the story that I'm telling, that Ruben just shared. It's going to take time for us to become more successful as a city. It takes time for you as an entrepreneur to become more successful. I've done this for 16 years. I still am not successful. I still want more, and I still believe that I can become better. One thing that I've learned, one thing that I've been brainwashed with, is to think bigger. And all the cliches are true. Like the first 3 weeks at Techstars, you meet people that you never imagined you would meet, and you think about the number 100, and then all of a sudden you think about the number 10,000. It automatically happens. And it's strange, because when I moved back last year, I went back to thinking about the number 100 instead of 10,000. You think about customers, you think about revenue. We need to be more comfortable telling really, really big numbers. You don't have to think about Amsterdam as your market or the Dutch market. If you're running a startup, you have a global audience, and the numbers need to be global in every conversation that you have. It sounds crazy, you won't feel comfortable for the first few months, but you have to think bigger than just the local Dutch market. We've met with over 150 investors. In the end, only 15 of them invested, which was a party round in our case. It was great. People were throwing money at us. But in reality, raising money looks more like this. Really smart people on the other side of the table, listening to you bullshit story, and they've done the same thing like 10 times the day before and 100 times the month before. Corné can vouch for that, and you need to know what you're talking about. You need to be prepared. If you think about raising capital in the US and you're a Amsterdam company, don't have a story that has euros in it. People in the US don't know what euros are. Speak English. And we're pretty fucking good at that. All right? So the fact that we have that huge advantage in going from Amsterdam to New York or SF, we are pretty capable of pitching ourselves, but we need to understand like the subtle differences in if someone says great or if someone says good. We talk about euros, they talk about dollars. Trying to figure out like how to speak the language that their investors are speaking, your team is speaking, and it will be a whole lot easier to build a company in Amsterdam or in New York. One of the things that I've seen over and over again are horrible pitch decks. Like 30, 40 pages with a ton of information that is not relevant. We have to do way better in building investor decks. There are a ton of examples online to build investor decks, and I still see horrible decks every week. And I'm not even an investor. So collectively, we should try to build better investor decks. One of the things that we are horrible with at Amsterdam or in the Netherlands in general is know what it means when you bring on board an investor. You need to bring a healthy cap table. You need to create a healthy cap table. If you bring an investor on board that owns 50% of your company, no one will ever give you any more money. You will have some money for the first few years, maybe first few months, but this is stuff that we need to think about as entrepreneurs, as startup founders, is what does it mean when you bring someone on board? Like how big of a chunk does he or she get when they fund your company? And what does it mean for your Series A and potentially for your Series B? Thinking about these things will help you avoid being stuck and unable to raise your next round. Sometimes we just have to say, screw yourself to investors. And a lot of people that I've met in the past and a lot of investment talks that I had are people that do not have your best interest in mind. I had a shitty experience with my investors and with my board of directors, but I would do it again like right away. Because I was lucky enough to raise money to build an amazing team, both here in the Netherlands, but also in New York. I've learned a few things. It's better to have a more diverse board than just like one single board member that can kick you out. But if you are trying to raise capital as a startup, know who you're bringing on board. And if you feel that things aren't right, just walk away and tell them to screw themselves. So, rounding up the Amsterdam ecosystem. One thing that I would love to see everyone do more and more is open every meeting with this one simple question. How can I help? Every meeting that you will have in the US starts with this single question. Not about the weather, not about your favorite soccer team, simply asking the other person, how can I help? Every meeting that you have in the next month should start with this sentence. How can I help? Everyone should get equity. Ruben just had a great slide, his last slide, where we talked about Exit City. I bump into founders at companies that don't get why everyone should get equity, it still baffles me. Like when even the tiniest piece of equity could give someone the room to start their own company. Like I hope that everyone that worked at Karma will eventually start their own company. If everyone has equity, we can all become richer. Sometimes. We all feel more like closely married to the company, to the goals and ambitions. And whether you're in customer support or the lead engineer or the VP of whatever branch, everyone should get equity. Yes, it's a pain in the ass to fund a stock It's hard to understand how equity works, but spend time educating yourself and make sure that everyone who joins your company gets equity. Super simple, and at the end of the day, we're building that ecosystem by making sure that everyone benefits from your successful company. And if you fail, then all the equity is worth 0, and you still have a nice relic. One of the first things that I've learned is how to email. I think we spent about a week at Techstars listening to David Tisch and his 101 on how to email. How do you make introductions? How do you reply? How do you get out of someone's inbox? Again, Google this shit, because like in Amsterdam, we can do way better. Lengthy emails, have no idea what you're talking about. Learn how to email. Make more introductions. Ruben is chatting right now, but I've met Ruben a few times while we were in New York. He introduced me to Mark Rutte and to Nelly Cruz. But I try to challenge Ruben. Every day, you should make introductions. Every meeting that you have should result in you being introduced to someone, or someone wants you to introduce them to someone else. So you start your meeting, how can I help you? And you walk away with an introduction. If those two things don't happen, you shouldn't meet. It's a waste of everyone's time. So I would love to see more introductions. And I can say that because I'm direct and blunt. I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out the differences between Dutch and US culture. Definitely haven't figured it out. But what I really, really liked going to the US is keep our directness and keep sort of the focus on being incredibly transparent and blunt when it's necessary. It helped me build a team of 30 people that felt comfortable enough saying anything to me, either when it was at the office or when we were having a drink, and whether I'm the CEO or just one of the guys trying to make a nice website. So that's one of the benefits that we have, I think, over many other countries and many other startup hubs, is that we are direct and we sort of know what we want. We just need to be a bit louder about it. It's cheap here. It's incredibly cheap. Should you move to New York? Hell no. It's way cheaper here to build your startup. If you raise $1 million here, you can easily last a year, maybe a year and a half. $1 million in New York is 6 months. And no one can build a company in 6 months. So the fact that we are amazing at design, we have some amazing engineers, we have super smart people here, there is no reason to move your company to the US if you can do the same thing over here. Jumping on a plane to New York is only 6 hours. It's simply way cheaper here to start your company. And we're pretty awesome. So we've seen some amazing companies already. We've done fairly well, but we haven't seen founders making like multiple rounds, right? So what we want to see is that exit city that Ruben was talking about. In maybe 5 or 10 years from now, we'll have guys like me that hopefully at some point become successful, and many people in the audience that have built their successful startups, that have come back with like huge amounts of cash, and hopefully instead of pouring it all into your holiday or your fancy new Tesla, you decide to pour that money back into the ecosystem. We went to New York in 2012. When I was meeting with like founders there that have been around for about like a decade, the same that we have here in Amsterdam right now, is they told us sort of the same things that we're seeing here. We have some amazing companies. We still need way more. But when you have a few IPOs, when you have a few exits, and like the millions of dollars are floating around, that's when the ecosystem really starts to work. So we also just have to be patient. Build really cool companies. If the money becomes available, please invest it back into the ecosystem. And don't move abroad, move back. Like I came back, a little forced. But I've known like 5 or 6 other founders that all went to the US and all decided to come back. The guys from Framer did the same thing. They sold their company to Facebook, and then they came back to Amsterdam to start their new company. Why? Because it's fucking Amsterdam and we're great. So come back. This Ankur and Juliet, my Android engineer, and Juliet did customer support. I was calling with them last week because they wanted to move away from the US and they wanted to move to Amsterdam. We just thought, that's fucking great. And one thing that Juliet said to me sort of struck me and said, what I miss right now at my new company, I think they are, one is at Dollar Shave Club, the other one is at Tinder. And they said, right now, like, I'm missing the drive to build something that's better than, the drive to build something that's better than something that already exists. Right? So that is something that you'll see with every entrepreneur, with every engineer, with every product designer, with every normal designer. We need to be focused on just making things a whole lot better than they are today. So my annoyance turns into building awesome products and awesome companies. Hopefully we'll all be successful. And when we do, pour the money back into the Amsterdam ecosystem. And that's my story.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Steven.